Thanks, Sean. Hi, everyone. Welcome and thank you for being here. Greetings from Australia and from Brazil. So, yeah, I'm originally from Brazil, but I'm speaking here from IH Sydney. It's 8:30 p.m. here, so not too bad. So, I'm going to talk about 432, which some of you may know about. And then I'll later talk about how I use this with my, well, how I use it with my class as well. So I'll just give you a brief idea of what 432 is. So basically, students are given a topic, and then they talk about that same topic in decreasing time limit. So they start with 4 minutes, then they do the same talk for 3 minutes, and then in 2 minutes. The original idea is that the listener just takes notes or just listens, but that does not interrupt, and they talk to the same person. The focus is not on vocabulary or grammar, so the idea is that they will all be known to the students already, so nothing should be new there, and it should be a topic that the students are familiar or comfortable with. So that's the original idea, and the main benefits are, well, obviously students increase the speed and the fluency. They reduce hesitation a lot because they feel more confident and they already know, they have a better understanding of what they're saying, and that in turn boosts their confidence. Now, what is very interesting here as well is because students have less time to speak the second and the third time, they end up having to choose better what to say and having to prioritize information, which is also very important for exam practice, for exam takers. So we'll talk a little bit more about this in the variations, the different ways we can do it. But basically, you can help students choose best what they want to talk about rather than just keep talking on and on about the same thing. There are some variations, some different ways of doing the 432, which sometimes it doesn't really mean 432 anymore. But so first of all, they can change partners. Personally, I prefer that because I think it gets really boring for the listener to just stay there, listen to the same talk for 4 minutes, 3 minutes, and 2 minutes. But there are benefits as well to that. But I prefer that they change partners, so you can do kind of a sushi train or onion ring style where the students just keep rotating and you just give them the time limits. You can also vary the time, so you can go from 432, which is the original idea, or 4-3-2-1, or you can start from 3 and just down to 1. I think that depends as well on what your class is. If it's a general English class, it doesn't really matter. You can go either way, and they all work well. But if it's an exam prep class, for example, Cambridge, where they do have a talk, a 1 minute talk during the exam, you might want to get the students to practice to get to that 1 minute where they have to limit the amount of things they say and what they say, and they have to prioritize. So it might be interesting to give them more time, and then they try to reduce and then just choose the ideas that are the most relevant or the most interesting. And you can also do the opposite. You can go 1, 2, 3, 4, which is very different from the original idea, but it works well as well on getting students to expand and give more reasons. So, when you get students who just answer the question and can't really expand much and can really show off everything that they have to say, going from 1 minute and then 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and so on, gets students to add more ideas and improve their talks as well. So it is also a very interesting variation which I've tried. What I'd like to show you now actually is a class procedure that I use sometimes with my groups, and then I've shared with some of my teachers, and they've tried it as well. it is for a whole lesson. So what we have here in Australia is 4 to 5 hour lessons every day. So we've got a lot of time. So I know that in some countries you only have about 45 minutes or 1 hour. So you may want to adapt that procedure. Yeah, I'm going to talk about the topics now, John. You can choose the topic. The idea is that the topic is not new to the students, so it's not something that they will struggle with, so that they can focus on their speaking. So yeah, so we start with this. We're choosing a topic. Normally the teacher chooses the topic. Is the connection okay, or is it just Nino? Because internet in Australia is not the best. Yeah, all good? All right. Okay, so sorry, Nino. Okay. After you choose the topic, you pair students up. So this will be a very different way from the original 4-3-2. So get students in pairs. Again, just like everything, you can choose the pairs or you can just randomly pair them up, completely up to you. And then get students to do some research. Now that will vary a lot depending on the facilities you have there in your school. So we have a lot of computers, so we normally send students to the computer room. And one thing that I found very interesting and more beneficial is actually to give each pair one computer only. Because when you do that, they have to interact rather than them just going and doing their own research. They don't really talk much about it, and they end up spending a lot of time because they end up researching the same things. So I like giving them, putting them together and getting them to use one computer only. Obviously, you can also use students' phones if you have Wi-Fi or good internet connection there. Again, I would recommend one phone only. Otherwise, it becomes an individual activity. And the whole point of this is to increase students' fluency. Well, then students prepare the talk and make a poster. I found the poster is very useful, especially when you're dealing with lower levels, so they have something to refer to. Every time you pair students up, you always have a stronger student and a weaker student, so that it helps the weaker student to have something that they can just point to and talk about, and it helps their speaking as well. And then you let students practice. So that, again, that's something that you can change depending on how much time you have, how long your lessons are, etc. So ideally get them to practice at least once or twice with their partner what they are going to say. Once they do that, the idea is to organize the class. So organize different stations, try to get students as far away from each other as possible. If you can go outside the classroom, that's okay too, that's great. If you can use student common area or something, but just get students, just place students around the classroom, okay? And that's when the speaking starts. So then you get one student staying with the poster, and the other student is moving around the different stations. Every time the student moves around, they take notes, they listen, but they do not interact or ask questions. Okay, so it's very important that they take notes because that's going to be used later on at a different stage. So the student will go to the first poster, to the first station, and they'll listen to that person for 4 minutes. Let's say we go 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. I set a timer. I like to put the timer, the stopwatch on the wall, so I project it on the wall so students can see and know how many minutes they've got left, just like I do now. And it helps them control their talk as well. Once the 4 minutes are gone, then are finished, the students move on to the next one. So they're not listening to the same talk, but then they're moving to the next speaker. And then we repeat the procedure with 3 minutes, and then 2 minutes, and then 1 minute. Okay. So they will listen to different people, and each person saying things at different length of time. So, and in each one they're taking notes, which is very important, but they're not interacting. Okay. Just checking the weather there. So it's really sunny there. That's nice. 4 minutes seems a very long time. It is, yes, it can be a very long time. That is true. And for some students, it feels like forever. But later on, that's the whole idea. So they have more time. Second time, when the speakers, so the people at the stations, when they're giving the speech again, they're giving it for 3 minutes only, and then 2 minutes, and then 1 minute. And then they go back to their original station and they swap places. So whoever was walking around and just listening and taking notes stays with the poster and then gives the presentation. And the person who was giving the presentation before is now going around and listening. It's very important that they go around the other way. So if they went clockwise, now they go anti-clockwise, because now they're going to have the opposite amount of time. So the idea is that wherever their partner stayed for 4 minutes, they're just going to have 1 minute, and so on. That's important for information exchange at the end. So then you just follow the same procedures. They go 4, 3, 2, 1, but in the opposite direction. And then they get back together, and then they use their notes to compare what they've got. So it's always very interesting because at the end they'll have 5 minutes of each presentation all put together, and then they obviously one will have more information about some of them, and the other one will have more information about the other one, which is which generates very interesting conversations, and they can compare what they heard. So you see students saying, "Oh, I didn't know that," or "I didn't get that," or "They didn't mention this," which makes this last bit interesting as well. It's always important to give them a task, so they need to have something to do there. So in this case, if they were talking about different places to visit, then they have to choose the best place, or they have to choose what they would like to do or where they would like to go, etc. So just give them a task so that after they exchange information, they have to do something with it. And then the last stage is optional. You can use that and you can just round up the lesson and get some feedback on students on what they heard, which ones they found more interesting and what they liked about it. Or you can jump into a task-based learning class and start teaching language that emerged from the talks. So you're monitoring while they're doing all this, obviously, and taking notes, and then you can choose what you want to do with those notes. You can expand on language later on, or you can just focus on the speaking, on the skills aspect of the lesson, and then just leave language for another day. So I've just put here some references for you if you want to have a look later on. There's some articles as well as a website you can look at. But basically that's what I wanted to share with you guys. Let's see if there are any questions here. We've got 1 minute left, so fantastic. The second, third time lesson sensation, yes, I've done it for IELTS and I've done it for CAE as well, Lucy, and it worked really well. With IELTS, I find that the expanding one works well with students who struggle to speak for 2 minutes in part 2. So that was very interesting as well. Yeah, or exam preparation. Yes, that's true, Paul. So it does help a lot. And it works well both ways. So feel free to give it a go. Yeah, you try to, Paul, you try to encourage them to speak as much as they can. So that's why I like having this stopwatch. So you just, encourage students to keep going or bring in new ideas or try to say something else. So a poster, get students normally an A3 paper and get them to write some of the main topics of what they're going to talk about. Maybe even draw something to make it interesting. It's just something they can refer to. Yeah, so the point of those students who can't talk for 4 minutes is encourage them, try to get them to talk. And in those cases, go from 1 to 4, and then they will slowly get better and they will see, oh, yeah, we managed to talk for 4 minutes. So we can do that. And then next time you can do the other way around. You can start from 4 minutes and then just get them to increase their fluency.
And that's just about your time,
No
which was
worries.
again perfectly timed.
All
This
good.
is going very well so far. Both the first two speakers have kept to their times perfectly. So, if there are any more questions for Lukasz, then please put them into the chat box, and hopefully he can stay around for another minute and answer them. There is a couple more questions come in.